Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Guilty as Charged podcast. My name is Steven, and I am the host, coming to you live from a hotel in downtown LA. So hopefully the hotel Wi-Fi holds up. Obviously, if I zoom out for a little bit, let me know. But excited to talk about this Chargers and Chiefs game with my guy Tyler. Tyler, what's up, man? How you doing today?
I've had better weeks for sure, and so have the Chargers and their injury report. But overall, can't complain too much.
Yeah, hopefully feeling a lot better. I mean, you sound like you're doing good. So, being sick as a teacher is kind of a rite of passage. Unfortunately, it just happens to us all once we get going. So, the Chargers playing the Chiefs this week. Should be a lot of stuff to talk about on our show today. The Chiefs are 7-point favorites. So the NFL in Vegas is a little worried about the state of the Chargers and all their injuries. So I don't want to spend too much time on the injuries. Our guy Jameson spoke about them at length today on his video. And then I chatted about all of the injury stuff on Tuesday in my video. So I don't want to spend like a whole rundown. And frankly, it's like the longest injury report I've ever seen. But Tyler, in terms of Justin Herbert and his potential to play, what are your thoughts there, as we've kind of seen him be limited in practice 2 days in a row, and he seems publicly like he is very adamant that he is going to play this week.
And that's where I think he's going to lead. I don't think he'd outright say that I'm trying to play, I'm going to play, I want to play, I feel better than I did at this point last week. I think he's going to play. He obviously would want to play regardless. Like, I think he would be out there anyway, but I do think he actually is going to play. I didn't think he would play after we saw him go down in Pittsburgh, but considering what he's been saying and how public he's been, I think he is going to play. Whether that's a good idea or a bad idea, I don't know. I tend to think it is overall a bad idea, but I understand why he would want to go out there and play.
Yeah, I think it's good. Obviously, that he said yesterday that he felt better yesterday than he did last Wednesday. I think some of that is the treatment of being back in the Bolt and being able to, do things that he was not able to do in Charlotte, and he did speak about that. My concern here that I spoke about on Tuesday, and it's one that Jameson spoke about today, is the risk of re-injury and the fact that this could just keep cycling through. So he feels better yesterday than he did last week. That's great, but he can just keep going out there and re-aggravating this same kind of injury. And I do really think it limited the amount of things that they were able to do from under center. I think it limited the amount of things that he was able to do just with planting his foot and being able to play the position the right way. If he could rest this week, rest next week, you do the whole like limited participant practice the week of the Broncos game, and he potentially is like close to 100% better at that point. But if he plays on Sunday and he re-aggravates it again, then we're just risking this injury lingering for the next 6 weeks of the season. So it's a tough situation for the Chargers to be in right now, because he's their franchise quarterback. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. But not that I'm advocating for him to sit and for the Chargers to lose, but I think you have to have the discussion if you're Jim Harbaugh and say, hey, man, is 2-2 really the worst thing for us right now if we get a fully healthy Justin Herbert after the bye as kind of the result of resting him? So if this is up to Justin, he's going to do what he did last week and he's going to play. But I just think that internally they should be having some discussion about sitting him, because it just would be better for the long term.
Yeah, they have to have that discussion. You will play the Chiefs again. You'll play the Raiders again. You'll play the Broncos twice. Obviously, you still have big games against the Bengals, which maybe not a big game anymore, but against the Ravens and teams like that. Like, you do still have some really big games coming up. Losing to the Chiefs. Look, yeah, you lost your last game, but you started 2-0. And so you bought yourself the ability potentially to sit Justin Herbert. Like, 2-2 at the bye is not worst case scenario. That's actually pretty solid. It's not phenomenal, but I'll take it. That'd be okay with me considering the circumstances. Like you said, it's not about whether Herbert can play in this game or not. Like, he's probably going to play, but it's Like at this point, we kind of expect that Justin Herbert's going to be on the ground in pain at some point this game. Like I'm given the team that he's facing and how talented they are on defense and how much they're going to rush on defense. Oh, and by the way, the offensive line of the Chargers, not just who's not playing, but who is playing and how they played kind of poorly lately. Like Justin Herbert's going to be on the ground in this game in pain. And it's up to the coaching staff to say if that's okay, to accept basically the fact that Herbert's going to probably get hit and hurt this game. But if he wants to play, like, what do you weigh the? It's tricky. I won't advocate for him to sit because, like, I get it. Like, you want to go out there. That's him. He should be himself. But
yeah,
like we're preparing to watch a game where Herbert's going to be on the ground in pain.
Yeah, and I think I would feel this way independently of who was playing in front of him. Like Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt are great players, but that's not the problem with the Chargers offensive line. The problem is the interior, and the Chiefs, more on them later, of course, but this is a very difficult matchup for this interior offensive line, which has not been at its best thus far this year. So to me, it's about getting Justin Herbert right. And if there's a lot of people think like, oh, if he rests, your season's over in different ways. Like some people are like, oh, like then the Chiefs would be 2 games ahead for the division and that race is over. Well, for being real, the race was over before the season started.
Yeah.
The Chiefs are the best dynasty of our generation. So they're going to win the division as long as Patrick Mahomes stays healthy. And there are other people who say, oh, the season's over, they're going to lose, everybody's injured, yada, yada. But the point of sitting him would be that in week 6, you get everybody back healthy, and that includes Justin Herbert, and you could potentially get things right and get things going after that point. So I understand, like, healthy players play, and I want to see Justin Herbert play on Sunday and be there in person. It would be great to see Justin Herbert play. But I think for the long-term benefit of this team, internally they should at least consider sitting him and doing what is best long term here, and not focus on just letting Justin be Justin and risk getting injured again.
Yeah, you and I are on the same page there. It's so tricky. I would hate for this team. They've been so cautious, they've been so careful with injuries in the off season. They want to have a long career with Justin Herbert. Of course, they want to protect him. The organization's very much centered around him. I don't know. I get why he'd play, but I worry. Of course, we all worry.
Right.
Lose the battle to win the war here is really where I would lean.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens there. He seems like he's adamant to play, and I do kind of expect that he does play. It's kind of how it's been reported as well. Again, not a ton of other things that I want to touch on. You can go watch Jameson's video, my video on Tuesday, if you want to, see our takes there. The one thing we didn't talk about is Darius Davis and his situation. We spoke about that on Sunday. Kind of concerning to see his decline. His overall numbers are like fine. They're not awful, which is good, but it's just not been the same kind of explosiveness as last season. And sure enough, he has a hamstring injury. He was limited in practice yesterday. He was downgraded to a did not practice today, did not participate. And so it looks like he is potentially on track to not play this week, which again, having the bye week is good for him as well. The Chargers did sign Jalen Reagor, who, much to Alex's chagrin, former Philadelphia Eagle, but he has been a pretty successful punt returner in the past. Obviously, Ladd McConkey has also been a successful punt returner. I would be curious about your take there, but that's the situation with Darius Davis. It's unfortunate but now we know why it's looked a little clunky is because he's dealing with this hamstring injury.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. It's funny. It's 2 weeks in a row where both you and I have gone, is that player okay? And then they pop up in the injury report. You with Josh Palmer, you were like, that doesn't seem right. And then sure enough, there was the injury report. And for both of us, like Darius Davis, it's like, wait a minute. There's no way that's the same player we've been watching. So that's really unfortunate. Haskins has been the other guy back there, of course, but they seem to want to get it to a more speedy, maybe a potential receiver type. So if that's Reagor, fine. Davis hasn't been awful. I think he's at 22 yards per return. Not terrible. He broke one for 35 in the first game. Just hardly hasn't gotten there the rest of the way. The punt returns. I think he was like 16 yards per return last year. I think he's around 9 now, which isn't terrible. Like 9 yards per return isn't bad. For the most part, it's actually before even the assumed injury or what we noticed there. It was really the decision making. So, we'll see how it goes. But that's a real bummer to hear. He's a big part of the mystique and the mystery of their offense, and even just like one gadget play in there. It was a bummer to hear that he's injured.
Yeah. So again, it's just hopefully we can get him back to his usual self and be the explosive weapon that he was last season. All right, let's get to this game, and we'll focus in on a lot of the nitty-gritty details here. There's not been a lot of positivity this week, so we're going to start positive. We are going to start about the thing we are most excited to see. Oh, wait, I'm skipping one. I'm sorry. We're doing the coaches thing. My bad.
Either way.
A bit here. So, Tyler, for you, what are you looking to see out of this coaching staff this week?
How the heck do they protect the quarterback that's out there? I don't even know who the quarterback is. But right now, reading the current starting projected offensive line, it does not look great. Now, you can do some things when you have Rashawn Slater out there and you have Joe Alt out there. Now, I thought against the Steelers, they did a pretty good job against TJ Watt. They genuinely had a pretty decent plan, whether it's Hayden Hurst chipping or Disley chipping, or Scott Matlock would be pulling, or Zion Johnson would go to the right side of the line. Like, there's a lot they were doing to slow down TJ Watt. Well, now you're out Rashawn Slater and you're out Joe Alt, and your whole offensive line is in a big shakeup. So how the heck are you protecting this quarterback? That is the number one thing I'll be watching. It's the most obvious storyline, I think, because of regardless who's out there, how do you protect this quarterback? And is it just running the football more? Is Gus Edwards going to get more touches finally, or at least in this game, what he did in last game? No idea. But how do you protect that quarterback out there?
Yeah, I would expect a lot of jumbo packages, and we'll see how that kind of looks this week. But, the Chargers, Greg Roman said that they're potentially experimenting with a lot of lineups right now. When the media was out at practice today and had eyes on it, they were working Sam Mustipher in at right guard and Jamari Sawyer at left tackle. That was today. I don't love that. People are adamant that Jamari Sawyer is a better left tackle than guard. I strongly, strongly disagree with those takes. And aside from that, putting the practice squad guard in ahead of two interior offensive linemen who are on the active roster, it's a little confusing and a little concerning that you do all of this work with Foster Sorrell. And, he had to play guard a little bit. Brendan Hymas played guard a little bit. Jordan McFadden played guard a little bit. Those are players that you've invested a lot of time and resources into seeing if they can play guard. And if your solution is Sam Mustipher, I'm a little concerned for the development of those three players, and I could be overreacting. But if he is the solution, why is he not on the active roster ahead of those players? So it's just it's a little concerning to me that Sam Mustipher is out there. I think for me, the best possible group here would be Foster Sorrell, left tackle, keep Zion and Bozeman at their spots. Jamari is at right guard. Trey Pipkins is at right tackle. And that's the way that you minimize the amount of risk, because Foster has played left tackle before, Trey played right tackle before, and Jamari has played right guard before. And those two combinations have played games next to each other before. Whereas if you're doing this whole thing with Jamari and Zion and then Sam Mustipher and Trey Pipkins or whatever, I'm a little concerned about that. And also you bring the Chiefs here to this conversation, who are not the Steelers across the board. They don't have TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith on the edges, but they have very above average players. And then you obviously have Chris Jones, who I think is the best interior defensive pass rusher in the league right now. And you have Steve Spagnuolo, who's willing to just identify a weak spot, and I'm just going to pick at that weak spot all game long. And so, yeah, that's a concern. And I think how this regime goes is protecting, like you mentioned, whoever is playing quarterback is obviously the key storyline this week.
Yeah, that was a big surprise to me to see Mustipher listed out there as the starter ahead of some other guys. You had pointed out Foster Sorrell had made pretty good progress, and you thought maybe even looked better at guard than he did at tackle. And I think I would tend to agree. Not that he looked great at tackle in his career, but I thought I was honestly genuinely pleasantly surprised by how he looked at guard. I get the anybody but Leatherwood approach. So I understand it must have. I understand that approach to this. but that anybody like the other guys that they're leaving out of this equation is a bit of a surprise. The Jamari Sawyer stuff, he played admirably at left tackle. He had absolutely no runway or lead up to playing that. They didn't do him any favors, and he played admirably, especially for a rookie day 3 pick. He did not play well at tackle. I think people are mixing up those two things. He played admirably, as best he could, and okay for a rookie. But I think people were like, "Oh, he's a great tackle. He played really well. He, stopped Myles Garrett." Like, that's not quite what happened, guys. Like, I do think that in a pinch, I get it, and maybe that's just what this week is, in a pinch. But again, I think there are better options. I am genuinely surprised they've been playing him. They might play him at tackle. Please do not mention Senio Kelemete in the chat. You're going to send Steven.
You will get blocked if you type
You
that
get
name again.
But yeah, a bit of a surprise there. And in training camp, I know they kind of flipped Jamari and Trey, but did they at least have Jamari at right tackle in camp at all?
Yes, both of those players worked right tackle. Trey would work both tackle spots. Jamari, I never saw working at left tackle in camp. The bulk of his snaps have all come at guard. So he has played both guard spots.
Yeah.
And occasionally right tackle in camp, but he was also injured during camp. So I don't know if that was ever in the plan. I think for me, like you mentioned, admirably is the right word because it helped kind of save the season. We avoided the Storm Norton situation from happening again. But they very rarely left him on an island that season. And Timu Risk does this great graphic of trying to measure who's being left on an island and who's exceeding expectations of who you are playing against. And Trey Pipkins pretty consistently was in the upper right graphic. So even if he was like allowing a good amount of pressures, he was drawing the more difficult assignments and he was on an island more often and he was exceeding expectations more often. Whereas Jamari was drawing the lesser assignments and receiving more help against those assignments. And so, yes, like if you look at the numbers and the grades, it looks good, right? But the film does not match those numbers. If you watch his film over the last 2 seasons, I think it was much more sustainable and more individually good at guard. Like there were some weak moments for sure. But I think his profile as a power player shows up more at guard where he can move people off of the football, where there's not a lot of space in between them. He can get his hands on you quicker, and he's able to really use the amount of strength and pop that he has with his hands at guard. So it's a bit of a nuanced take there, but I was arguing with people online all day today because, well, PFF and the grades, it's like, no, you got to watch like him individually and see where he excels. And that to me is like so clearly at guard. And him and Trey they know how to work together. They know how to play together. Both of those players have played those positions already. You keep that right side relatively intact, and then you figure it out at left tackle, whether that's Foster, whether that's somebody else. But I think this is a situation where you're trying to get your backups in spots where they are more comfortable. And Jamari is more comfortable individually at guard than he is at left tackle. And so I think if you put him at left tackle, you're making yourself worse at left tackle and you're making yourself worse at right guard. That's my stance on the whole situation.
No, that's a great way to put it. Well said. As Edison points out, I'll take your analysis over PFF any day. When it comes to offensive line, I think I'd take my dog's analysis sometimes over PFF. Respect what they do, but offensive line play is something else. Is it a case where maybe they feel they've been so successful off the left side running the football behind Zion and Rashawn Slater that they just want the strongest guy out there at left tackle? Is that like a rationale they could be going with here? Or
I think they're trying, like, we don't know how many lineups they're exactly doing in practice. These are just the lineups that we've seen from the media so far. But I think they're trying to find out where each of these players are best suited because they haven't coached these players. They haven't been in front of these players before. And so I think it's just they're trying to figure it out. But we'll see. I would like ideally these players just get all of the reps at the one spot already, and we're not doing this rotation thing. So I guess we'll see what happens. I'm still hoping that Jamari is ultimately the right guard on Sunday and not left tackle.
Yeah, very possible. All right, what's your coaching storyline?
There's a few. I think this is a really interesting week for Jesse Minter's defense and how we can kind of pivot, or pinpoint where the focus should be for this offense. I think Rashee Rice has become, a real focal point of their offense, and Travis Kelce has not. And it's going to be really interesting to see, like, Travis Kelce torched the Chargers under anyone, but particularly under Brandon Staley's defense. So I am overall just curious, where does Jesse Minter really put his attention from pass catchers? Because everybody still is treating Travis Kelce like he's been prime Travis Kelce, and he's getting double teamed and he's getting shaded. The Chiefs are not, they have not been as prone to force feed him targets anyway. And so I'm very curious where Jesse Minter puts his attention, because right now Rashee Rice is performing at a top 5, 6, 7 level in the league in terms of receivers. He's breaking a lot of tackles. He's getting a lot of yak. He's getting a lot of touchdowns. He's getting a lot of red zone targets. He's their number one guy. But we know as Chargers fans that Travis Kelce is very prone to big games in these kind of moments. So how does Jesse Minter weigh the new toy versus the legend? I think is a very interesting thing for us to watch from a game plan perspective this week.
Yeah, Rashee Rice, I mean, we can sort of tie this into what we're most scared of watching this game, what keeps us up at night, because watching him play, thankfully they play a lot of primetime games. I've been watching a lot of Chiefs games, and they're finding so many different ways to get Rashee Rice on the move in space, go chase me, go tackle. Yeah. And that just sounds horrifying for this defense right now, and how some corners and some defensive backs have been playing. I believe compared to last year, the defense's missed tackle rate or missed tackles per game is actually up from last year. So they are hitting very hard. We saw that against the Steelers, but the missed tackle rate is up. Of course, in particular, Asante Samuel Jr., I think, who went from a career worst of maybe 20%. I think he's at 28% right now in terms of missed tackle rate, which isn't great. So I'm definitely worried about Rashee Rice and how they defend him there. And I think even going into this game, we could have said, well, okay, there's Travis Kelce. Well, let's put Derwin James on him. Well, that's not the case anymore this week. So, what do they do? I think Derwin James had such a good game last week, and you really saw him get back to what we are used to seeing from him. Unfortunately, the suspension. So now it's like, okay, what is the new plan here? They haven't really been tested at slot corner that I'm aware of. So is this a lot of Elijah Molden? I don't know, but it's a very different, unique setup right here. Like, we've been waiting a long time, 3 weeks, to see this defense get tested against this offense. And like you said, like, how does Jesse Minter, what does he decide to do? It's a pick your poison.
Yeah, this coverage unit has not been tested the way that they are going to be tested tonight. However, I think if you go back and look at the Chiefs game against the Ravens in week 1, anytime Malik Harrison was on the field, Andy Reid circled him with a red dot and said, look, we're going to go after this particular player. I think Denzel Perryman is playing really well right now, but for the Chargers, I'm going to circle this guy and go after him in coverage, because he's never been a coverage guy. He's always been a run defense and blitzer guy. So this is unfortunately a week. I would love to have Junior Colson out here, just because I think with Junior and Dayon, you have a much better coverage linebacker duo. So that's another thing to keep an eye on is how do they go about potentially isolating Denzel? Do they isolate Jasir Taylor, who has not really been tested? It's just going to be very interesting to see this chess match. I think obviously this is Andy Reid, right? But Jesse Minter has not had to really kind of flex his muscles all that much. You get Bryce Young and Gardner Minshew, and you're able to just kind of do your staple things, and it just naturally kind of confuses them. Well, now you get Andy Reid, and this is really going to be a true chess match. And obviously we saw Brandon Staley in these moments really overthink things a little bit too much and just get in his own way. I'm hoping that Jesse Minter obviously can, not be that situation this week.
No, the last meaningful time that they played, where it was 300 yards at the half and 200 of them were yak before the first half even hit. I mean, that was that was awful. I don't anticipate that being the same case this game, regardless of who's out there. But still, worrisome for sure. It's a huge test for Jesse Minter. I don't, not the Chiefs maybe haven't always been throughout this whole year, like, the 40 points per game kind of offense. They have maybe been before, but still, like, they're a great offense, and they're an offense that can problem solve. No Pacheco. We still got 3 great interior offensive linemen. So they can just run the ball with Carson Steele. I didn't love coming out of the draft. He's very much exactly what he's been, just a hammer, 4 yards, 5 yards. He does it very well, but it's easy to do that behind this offensive line. So it's a lot. I'm glad you mentioned Denzel Perryman too, because watching the Raiders game, watching the Panthers game, watching some of the depth and against the Steelers, the way the linebackers would drop, it's like, oh boy, if they faced a really good quarterback, they'd really be SOL here. Well, here we go against a great quarterback. Again, like you said, Denzel Perryman's been playing well for his role. He's doing exactly what he's supposed to do, and he's playing it well. He's physical, downhill, great coverage. We'll see. There's a lot of Deion Henley this week, and difficult matchup.
Yeah, I think Deion, I'm excited to see how Deion does this week. I think he's really improved every single week. I featured him in my video on Tuesday. I think he's going to be up for the task, but, is this a game where Jesse Minter plays more dime? They just signed Tony Jefferson to the active roster today, so they do have, that kind of safety depth. And so I'm just so curious to see what Jesse Minter does in this kind of situation. Okay, in terms of excitement, I'll go first here. I'm really excited to see Tuli get his chance to be back in a full-time starting role. And adjacent to that, obviously, is what Khalil Mack is going to do to Wanya Morris this week. The offensive tackle situation for the Chiefs is not great. Jawan Taylor, his pressure numbers are overall fine. It's not as bad as Orlando Brown was, but he is a player who has been prone to committing a lot of holding penalties, false start penalties, which should be a lot more. But he led the league last year in holding penalties, and against the Chargers in the last year, he had 3 holding penalties in 2 games. So how the Chargers can kind of get after Patrick Mahomes is really simple to me. I don't really trust the interior pass rush, and particularly not this week against this Chiefs interior offensive line, which I think is the best trio in the league. But the tackles can be had. Wanya Morris last week against the Falcons in his first start was fine, but he was not tested. Matthew Judon is the best Falcons pass rusher, and he's very much not in his prime, and he went against Jawan Taylor more often. Khalil Mack is a very, very different beast. So to me, this is an opportunity for the Chargers rushers, and I wish Joey Bosa were playing in this game, obviously, but even without him, I do think we'll see Tuli make a strong impact. He had a good, very good performance last year against the Chiefs. So Tuli and Khalil, how they get after Mahomes is really the excitement level for me. I wish there were more on the offensive side to talk about, but those are the 2.
Yeah, I love that. It was not concerning, but I was kind of bummed to the start of the year for Tuli because as the 3rd, maybe even sometimes the 4th guy out on the field, didn't really rack up any stats. I think he had 0 pressures and 0 stops through the first 2 weeks. But then you watch him, Joey Bosa goes out and he has to be a bit more of a starter. Played awesome, played powerful, played aggressive. I wish Suamataia was out there because I think Tuli is specifically a guy that could get after him because I think he's just physical in a way that Kingsley Suamataia really isn't. But still, Morris against Jawan Taylor, whoever. Yeah, I think these guys will get after. If there's any hope for this defense, it's with those 2 guys. Bud Dupree has played okay. I think he's been solid as a guy who was brought in to be the 4th guy. Hasn't been great statistically, but I think he's been fine. But Tuli is that shining light guy. And the better he plays, the more Joey Bosa doesn't have to get back onto the field immediately. Of course, there's a bye week, but Jameson talked about how this could be multi-week thing and slowly ramp up for Joey. So I hope Tuli plays well to just give Joey those couple of weeks to come back. But I think at this point, I'm watching Tuli play, I am ready to just let him have this thing.
Yeah, it sucks Joey is back where he is. We had the week 1 game and it was awesome. But just, unfortunately to get, right back to the unhealthiness. So I am curious. Daniel Popper mentioned Justin Eboigbe has been taking snaps on the edge this week.
Okay.
Curious to see if that is the choice or if Tremont Morris-Brash gets elevated from the practice squad. I would definitely prefer that Brash gets elevated because he's a natural edge rusher, but I guess we'll see about that. So to your point, though, I do think Bud Dupree he's been a much better run defender than he has a pass rusher. He's actually like one of the least efficient pass rushers in the league right now. But this could be a situation where we could see him get right. He hasn't had a ton of pass rush opportunities, so maybe in a bigger role in the next couple of weeks, we see him make a stronger impact as a pass rusher.
Yeah, he's gotta. Hopefully, he does.
I completely missed that Kareem Hunt was back on the Chiefs. So,
he is?
I guess so.
When was this?
Must have been this week.
Okay, that's new. That's news to me. I did not realize Kareem Hunt was back on the Chiefs.
Yeah, me neither. All right, Tyler, what are you excited to watch this week?
Well, buddy, not a whole lot left to watch this week that excites me. So I'll go with Ladd McConkey, man. And listen, of all the things that might have gone okay against the Steelers, I think maybe McConkey might have been the brightest star. Right now, he is third in, I know we clowned the grades, but got to bring them up sometimes. Third in grade versus man behind Justin Jefferson and Malik Neighbors. That's pretty good. I think you want to be kind of in that zone. I think he's fifth and more objective in yards per route run against man coverage right now through 3 weeks. There's just watching him against the Steelers, it just feels like, can we just throw to him every time he's in the slot 1v1 and just like, will anybody stop him? He has such a knack, not just for getting open, but for them picking up that extra yard after the catch. And his yak per reception isn't a lot right now. But when you watch him, there's just a little crease that he finds, the way that he bends and moves after the catch. I want to see this guy go off. And in a game where I'm assuming you're not holding on the ball for too long, or you need someone to get open. Quentin Johnson has been a good part of this offense so far, but he's not a guy who's going to get open immediately. This is not a quick slant guy. I don't anticipate this is a route running guy that gets open immediately just yet. There's a lot you can do with him. It's not that. To me, that's Ladd. That's the easiest, most open guy I feel like on the field. We haven't seen Hurst become that guy. Just as a blocker. Palmer's hurt. Chark's hurt. Johnson's not really that guy. Feed Ladd McConkey. Now, of course, easier said than done. You'll be facing, potentially Chamari Connor, but also Trent McDuffie in the slot. In terms of corners, he plays the most in the slot. So it's a good matchup. I'm excited to see that. You drafted him. He's come up very well for the Chargers so far, but he really needs to show up in this game to have any shot.
Yeah, and he's going to have a tough matchup, obviously, with Trent McDuffie, but this is going to be a very good test for him to see where he's at. Jacob Gibbs on Twitter, who's a great follow, had this graphic that Ladd McConkey is leading the league in first downs created against man coverage on a per play basis. He's not been featured like a ton of the other guys, but he's creating a first down on like 33% of his targets in man coverage. So he's producing against man coverage. He's going to see a ton of it this week with Trent McDuffie. So maybe this is a big Quentin Johnson game this week. So I think these two young receivers, I'm very pleased with where both of them are at. Again, this is a much bigger test this week than I think previously. But I think if Justin plays, I think they'll have the time to, or they'll have the chance, those two specifically, to create some big plays this week.
Yeah, I'm also then curious how he, if at all, becomes, well, you mentioned potentially kick returner or punt returner. I don't love that. I'd rather just stay away from that and use somebody else. But I'm curious how he develops into is used in the Darius Davis motion, whatever role, because he is a guy that could be used like that. Do you use him like that? Is he more of a decoy? I don't know. We'll see.
I think you use him on motion more than he has been, just because you potentially can create some touches for him that way. Darius hasn't touched the ball very much, but get him in those situations where he can be kind of like your RPO glance route and let him create after the catch, I think is a good chance. Okay, let's get now to our prize picks. I'm sorry. Jumping the gun again. What about this matchup is keeping us up at night? I think we've kind of dived into a few of these things.
Yes.
The answer is yes, Tyler. But anything else you want to get off your chest about something you're concerned about this week?
No, I mean, I think I'm horrified about the injuries. I'm horrified about, the defense overall, Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes. Um, Nothing in particular that we haven't mentioned yet, to be honest.
Yeah. The one thing I will bring up, Tershawn Wharton is the Chiefs'
Mhm.
nose tackle. He's rushing the most from the A gap of any Chiefs interior defensive lineman. And when you filter on Pro Football Focus players who have a high frequency of A gap snaps and pass rush win rate, Wharton is actually fifth in the league in pass rush win rate in those regards. It's 9.7, so it's not a ton. But that's obviously a concern as well because he's going to be going up against Bradley Bozeman. So this is a game really where the Chargers are going to have to stay on game script as much as possible to try and avoid this interior pass rush to just kind of tee off on this Chargers banged up offensive line. So hopefully they're able to run the football this week. I would expect to see a lot of jumbo packages, get Will Disley out there a ton. Scott Matlock, maybe get a 6 offensive lineman out there, and really try and just keep the Chiefs at bay with the run game. I think that's kind of going to be the game plan this week.
Yeah, I agree. I honestly didn't know who Wharton was until about 2 weeks ago. And suddenly I'm just watching this new Chiefs defensive lineman tear through offensive lines. It's like, oh, you got to be kidding me, dude. And then it's Enaduke Azama, and then it's Karlaftis, and it's Jones. Like, jeez, they keep finding these guys.
Yeah, and Charles Omenihu will be back at some point. So yeah,
That's right.
It's tough. Yeah, I think I am a little concerned about the run defense this week. I think I'm buying the run defense as a whole, but this interior defensive line group I think has played really, really well. It's definitely exceeding expectations. But again, they have not seen an interior trio like this: Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith, and Joe Tooney. So Otito Ogbonnia is a little banged up right now. If Otito has to miss this game or is limited in this game, it could be a bit of a dice roll in the middle this week. So Poona Ford, need a big game from him. Tier Tart, if he's going to start or play more, need a big game from him. Morgan Fox, would love to get him going as a pass rusher. So the interior defensive line has got to be really on their keys this week.
Yeah, I think they're up to the task. They were for 3/4 of that game against the Steelers. They're playing very, very well. Just like we mentioned after the game, just lost the win in their sails. They just were not the same in that fourth quarter. Then the Steelers just took over and won that game. But they really feel like with the injuries, they started to take over. So I think they're up for the task for the most part. But if Otito can't go, so when Otito couldn't go, was it more Tart or did you go with more Matlock?
It was more Tart, I feel like.
I hope.
I
get it. Like
Otito didn't miss that many snaps, though. He only missed a small handful of snaps at the very end of the game.
Oh, okay. I don't know.
So we'll see. Okay, now we'll get to our Prize Picks selections of the week. Obviously, Prize Picks is the best and easiest way to consume daily fantasy sports. They have great specials right now. I also love kind of cheating a little bit and using their Green Goblin feature to just give me an easy win on every single week. And so whether you are somebody who is very, very aggressive or somebody who just wants that easy dub, you want the nice little layup, Prize Picks has you covered there. You can go to prizepicks.com/guilty, code guilty at checkout for deposit match up to $100. That being said, there are not a lot of options right now for the Chargers. They did this last week. I think they're waiting to see what Justin Herbert's status officially is to kind of set their numbers. Right now, when I looked a few minutes ago, it was only J.K. Dobbins was on there, and I think Cameron Dicker, and I think that was pretty much it, if I remember correctly.
I'm looking at it right now. It's J.K. Dobbins and then McConkey and Johnston only for the Ghouls on the more difficult overs.
Okay.
So not much.
Do you have any Chiefs ones that you're interested in?
Okay, let's do that. Sure. Give me a second to look at the Chiefs ones. Do you have one off the top of your head?
I think this is unfortunately a big Travis Kelce bounce back game, especially without Derwin. I think his number was at 57.
I can tell you he is at, I just saw it and it refreshed on me. I think he's at 44.5. Yeah,
Okay,
44.5.
that's really low to me. I know that this is not a great start for Travis Kelce, but that's probably where I would start. And I'm not saying that Jesse Minter will let him toward defense, but I think more than 44 is probably a pretty easy pick there.
Yeah. They're also at Mahomes is at 34.5 pass attempts. I don't really anticipate them throwing it 35 times this game if they want to, I guess. And I get that they don't, it's not that they're launching the ball 35 times, but if that's the more, maybe consider the less for Mahomes here. Yeah. Let's see. Anyone want to do a Noah Gray longest reception more?
Wait, his number for pass attempts is at 34?
Yeah, 34.5.
Oh, interesting. So he had 28 attempts in week 1, 25 in week 2, and then 39 this week. That's an interesting number.
Yeah, 34.5 against this. I mean, it's a bit of a surprise. I don't know if that was set early, but anyway, I don't think the Chiefs will have to throw 35 times this game. So
interesting. Where are you at with J.K. Dobbins' number? The Chiefs' defense, I think, is about 14th in rushing success rate and like yards per game and stuff like that. His number has kind of stayed around 55-ish. So where are you at with J.K. Dobbins this week?
So he's at 55.5. It's different because that in the previous games, obviously he made it over the first two, and then I think he hit his less on the second one. But there's always this big pop, usually on the left side. The obvious difference here is that there's no Rashawn Slater on that side or no Joel on the right side. So the volume is definitely going to be there for him, I would assume. I think I might go less this week, unless he pops the one big run. But that has been very much so because of like guys like Rashawn Slater. Yeah. I don't know that Jamari's giving you that this week.
Yeah, if you watch all of the big runs that JK has had, they're all going left, except for his one touchdown, which was designed to go left. And then he cut it back and went to the right. So, yeah, man, I think I trust him to bounce back. I think he did leave a little bit of meat on the bone against the Steelers. There were a couple of decisions that I didn't love where he tried to go out wide. So he wasn't as decisive as the first couple of weeks. So I think we could see him bounce back, but I don't know. I'm questioning like the game script here because I don't know if the Chargers will be able to stay and be able to run the football this week like they need to, or if Patrick Mahomes just comes out and the Chiefs are up 14-3 like right off the bat, and then the Chargers like, well, we got to pass the ball now. So yeah, that's more my concern, honestly, than like the blocking and the scheme, because I think the tight ends and the fullback, and I think the Chargers will do enough to give him opportunities as long as the script stays positive. If the script is trailing right away, then that's just going to be tough for the run game to get going.
Yeah, I think so. I think it'll be close for a while. I don't think the game script will get away. I hope the game script doesn't get away from them. I think it'll be close for a while. And then I just think in the second half, after especially if it's a backup quarterback, after the scripted plays and all that has gone through, then I think it gets away from them. So I think Dobbins could get there in the first half, like with the attempts and the efficiency and this game script. Hopefully it doesn't get away for them too early.
Yeah. Again, that is prizepicks.com/guilty, code guilty at checkout for a deposit match. Highly encourage you guys to go and use that. Tell a friend. Everything it's super easy. It's basically knocked actual fantasy football out of my life because it's just so much more fun. All right, Tyler, let's get to our X factors here. We've kind of talked about a lot of players today, so I don't know who you picked for this one, but who is your X factor?
It was going to be Jaw Taylor and how he performs in the slot in this game. I guess you could just say whoever's in the slot this game. We'll see what happens. But Jaw Taylor, for me, I think he's performed well in the moments of tackling, but I haven't really seen anybody just go after Jaw Taylor. I haven't seen him have like a Bryce Callahan slot performance where here's this great pass breakup or he's covering this guy down the field. There's a lot to watch in this defense, obviously. So maybe I'm just not watching Jaw Taylor. I don't think he's been really, really tested. This game, I think he would be. He should be if I were an offensive coordinator. So he's max factor this game.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think picking a secondary player is right this week. I feel like Christian Fulton is really close to getting an interception. He's been aggressive. He's making smart plays on the football. And Patrick Mahomes, for all of his success against the Chargers, has thrown 6 picks since 2019 against the Chargers. So he has been prone to taking some chances and making some poor decisions. There's also been at least 2 interceptions that should have counted and didn't, conveniently for him. So I think choosing a secondary player is right. Whether that's, Lohi Gilman has had an interception against Patrick Mahomes, Asante has had an interception against Patrick Mahomes. This is a game where you absolutely have to win the turnover battle. And so I think Christian Fulton is probably my choice here, just because I feel like he's due for a big play. We've seen him make some good tackles, and he's had a couple of pass breakups. But I think he's going to have an opportunity to make a real play on the football. He's probably going to see a lot of Xavier Worthy, so maybe a deep shot, and he can kind of undercut it and get an interception. That would be great. So I'm going to go Fulton here, more so because I think he's potentially due for a bigger game than Jasir can give them.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think he is absolutely due. He's been in the position to make all the plays, just hasn't been tested a ton. So yeah, I think he could definitely get one of them. I'd love a Christian Fulton interception in this game.
Yeah, it would be a lot of fun. All right, game pick wise.
Nose goes.
If Justin Herbert plays, I think that obviously sways things quite a bit.
Yeah.
The Chiefs are prone to playing close games.
Yep.
Like their last 9 games have all been within 1 touchdown. So if Herbert plays, I think the Chargers can keep it close. If Herbert doesn't play, I think the Chiefs would cover that spread, and I think the spread would probably increase by a few points. So if Justin Herbert plays, as I expect him to do, I think the Chiefs will win, but I think it'll be close, and I'm thinking like 26-20 kind of thing.
Yeah, we're on the same page there. I was going to pick 27-20, basically on the same page there. I think that it's unfortunate. If Herbert were 100% healthy, I'd probably still pick the Chiefs to win this game.
Yeah.
But both the tackles, Joey, everything. It's just, it's a bit of a storm right now. Honestly, 20 points for the Chargers almost seems generous. But I think, like you said, they keep it close. But I think they'll just at some point towards the end, the Chiefs will get the thing that happens, and it'll suck, but it always happens, and you'll get to witness it in person.
Yeah, first time I get to see the Chiefs in person.
Sick.
The script to be the Chiefs is like so obvious. Like you have to take advantage of the stupid moment that the Chiefs are going to have, because they do something stupid every single week, even though they're the dynasty of this team. They will give you an opportunity to like make them pay, and then these teams just give the ball right back to them in these situations. So you've got to do that. You've got to avoid all of the dumb penalties that have been happening, like pass interferences. Don't give the referees any chances here to make a game swaying call. And then you've got to win the turnover battle. Like every single week, I watch these teams and they get a turnover and then they turn it right back over after that, or they turn it back over twice. And I'm like, bro, you can't give the Chiefs short fields like this. So I think the Chargers will be well suited in that regard. I think they have a good chance of winning the turnover battle, but I don't know if they have the offense to really win this game, even though I do think they can keep it close if Herbert plays.
No, they didn't have the offense to win this game heading into the Steelers game. I don't think they were even at that point just yet. Some promising things, though, but they still didn't have the offense then. Now they definitely do not have the offense to win. So I think it'll be close. I think we'll be encouraged. I think Harbaugh's not going to let it be a blowout game by any means. But yeah, they're gonna lose this one. Athir, I see your take, buddy. But the Chargers winning this one, that'd be awesome. And listen, I saw Easton Stick almost take down the Bills in prime time, so anything is possible. But they still did lose that game, so I just think it's not gonna be a fun one. But I think the Chiefs do win this one.
Yeah, we've seen the Chiefs lose some interesting games the last few years. Like they lost to the Broncos one game where They only scored 9 points last year. The Raiders beat them on Christmas Day. They nearly lost to the Patriots last year. So the Chiefs are prone to losing some games like this. They are kind of in that San Antonio Spurs era where they're kind of on cruise control until they absolutely have to be. So there's a chance here. I think it's not all doom and gloom, obviously, but this is why you pay Jim Harbaugh what you pay Jim Harbaugh. I think he'll have his guys ready. I think they'll be competitive. I'm kind of the mindset that regardless of who the Chargers have, I'm just not going to predict wins until they start happening more frequently against the Chiefs. The record against Mahomes, like if they beat backups, I don't really count that, but the record against Mahomes is not great. So until it starts happening more, I'm kind of just like wait and see mode.
Yeah, I agree. I wasn't going to pick them to win this game 4 weeks ago, and I'm not going to do it now, unfortunately. I think it'll be a good, frustrating but close-ish game, but I think the Chargers do end up losing this one, and that's okay. That's where they're at.
Do you know Mahomes' record against the Chargers?
I think he's lost twice.
He's 8-2 against the Chargers as a starter.
Yes. And we freaking love those 2 other games the Chargers have won. It feels like a Super Bowl, right? In Arrowhead to Mike Williams. In Arrowhead again to Mike Williams.
Yep.
Yeah, man. It's the same thing every time, man. And you're going to hear the silence in those stands when Mahomes has the ball down. That's the ball down 4 with 3 minutes left. You're going to just feel
the anxiety.
Or they'll win. I don't know. Maybe it's the greatest game we'll ever see.
Yeah, this is why you hire Harbaugh. You got to switch that record around. So we'll see what happens. Very excited to get to SoFi, meeting some new fans. There's some fans coming from out of state for this game that I've talked to. So it's going to be an exciting time for the fans. I think I've never seen Mahomes in person before, and you only get so many chances to see, legends like him. I guess that's a good way to frame it. Maybe a certain pop star will be there in person. That's more for my wife, who's really excited about that potential. But should be fun either way. At the end of the day, we're paying to go see a football game of our favorite team, and I'm always a fan of that decision. So, Tyler, any final thoughts before we head
out? Nope. Just prayer circle. Everyone, Herbert, like whatever karma, good juju you have, just send it his way. Just make it through the game okay if you play. And everybody else.
Yeah, stay healthy. The Steelers also have a lengthy injury report this week, so I think it was just like one of those games where both teams come out and everybody's injured. So hopefully next week's injury report, or 2 weeks from now, injuries report is much smaller. So that would be nice. That'd be great.
Yeah, we've never seen the Chargers get injured during the bye week before. Oh, wait, that was 2 years ago.
Come on, man.
Hey, man. We're just Chargers fans. We've lived it all.
Yes, it's very true. We definitely have. All right, guys. That's going to do it for us today. Appreciate you all for tuning in. Hopefully you have a great time watching the rest of Thursday Night Football. We will be back on Saturday for our Q&A. And then I will not be on the show on Sunday because I'll be driving back from the stadium to Fresno. But Tyler will have a show, a sort of recap with him or potentially somebody else. We'll see what happens. All right. We appreciate you guys. This has been the Guilty as Charged podcast. As always, bolt up.